like, let's be honest, the Kings aren't that high up in the standings. So what Malik Monk is doing isn't necessarily going to be as meaningful as what I think someone like Norm Powell would want to do, especially considering if you're talking about like, we want to give rest down the stretch to Kawhi and PG, and they'll play, but they're not going to play nearly as many minutes as they played in the beginning of the season. And we're going to try to make it to like, I don't know, a top 2, top 3 seed in the West. Then I think that all eyes are going to be on someone like Norm Powell versus Malik Monk, right? Where I don't think voters are going to be like looking at Malik Monk and say, how much did he really impact what the Sacramento Kings were doing when you have guys like Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox there? Yeah, you have Kawhi and PG, but when you're higher in the standings, I feel like there's just going to be more eyeballs on you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, it could also just be a padding the stats thing. Like, okay, so here's another example. Bogdanovich right now is on there at 30-1. He's been getting a lot of starts, right? He's been getting more minutes. He's been getting, I mean, I'm looking now, if you look at even just over his last, I mean, so yeah, 15 points a game in February, but you look at 19, 17, 14, 12, but then 28. That was a loss against the Bulls. But now with Trae Young out, Bogdanovich is going to get a lot more opportunities, a lot more shots. So it could be a chance just for him to even pad his stats a little bit, where at the end of the season, because look, I'm not going to try to get in every voter's head. We can't do that, but we still have to kind of do that anyway. And Sixth Man of the Year sometimes can be a flashy award if there's guys that really stand out. With guys not standing out this year, I just kind of wonder if there's going to be some voters that put a lot of time into MVP in that decision, or Coach of the Year, really competitive races that we've talked about. And then it comes down to Sixth Man, and they're like, you know what? Bogdanovich averaged 18 points a game when it was all said and done. Hawks were a playing team. I'm going to give him Sixth Man of the Year. Like, again, we're playing devil's advocate, trying to just get in voters' heads, whatever you want to look at it as. But that may be what it comes down to, is who can pad their stats the most at the end of the year, given the fact that somebody's out.
Yeah, and remember, too, the consensus favorite was Emmanuel Quickley. And then Emmanuel Quickley got traded and got thrust into the starter role. So it would have been all but over. And then he was moved to the Toronto Raptors, and then everything kind of got herky-jerky, right? So that opened up the odds. It opened up this race for players that we would have never even been thinking about, talking about. No shade to Malik Monk, because Malik Monk is incredible in winning time specifically. And I know people are probably not talking about Naz Reid, and he's 18-1, but like Naz Reid also incredibly impactful for the number 1 team in the West. That was the reason why they locked him down to a contract. You have 2 big men already to start, and they made sure to get Naz Reid, and his plus minus has been insane. So I'm not saying that a guy like that on a team that's not as, I guess, sexy as the Clippers are, and I say sexy with the Clippers very loosely, but Minnesota certainly is lower on the radar than LA is. But Naz Reid certainly has a case as well.
Malik Monk currently at minus 145, and it was a great conversation about the Sixth Man of the Year award. So Mr. Monk at minus 145, or would you rather the field for Sixth Man of the Year? So much can happen. I know you said you like Mathurin at 66-1, but Malik is in the lead. It's just such a damn volatile topic and award process.
It is. It's super volatile. I think I'd have to take the field. I actually don't think Malik Monk wins this award. What happens if Sacramento slides into the bottom of the play-in race? They've been known to have long stretches of playing very head-scratching basketball. They can play really well against teams like Denver or LA, some of the contenders, and then they lose to New Orleans. I think they've lost to New Orleans a million times this season, every single time that they played. They lost to the Heat that had no Tyler Hero, no Josh Richardson, no Jimmy Butler. It was just Jaime Jaquez and Bam. So if they're not playing meaningful basketball, Malik Monk is probably not going to win the award. So I'm going to take the field.
There is so much that can still happen for that award. There really is. I mean, and we just saw it literally last year. So I think you bring up a good point, too, in terms of, Trista, like where Sacramento could end up. Because they're not the same team they were last year.
Would you rather Bet the Nuggets to repeat as Western champs, plus 240,
Mm-hmm.
or Mr. Jokic and his marked up arms at minus 145 currently to win MVP number 3. Would you rather?
That's good. That's good. I think I'd probably go. I'm gonna go Jokic winning MVP only because, God, this is a good one. This is a really, really good one. You know what?
We like these.
I would go Jokic. I would go Jokic MVP though, only because now with Joel Embiid out, you kind of feel like. I feel like SGA is going to be a year off. As much as I think he deserves it this year, we're at that point where still, like, Jokic has established himself, now won an NBA title, and we're trying to find the next, like, the rival to him with Embiid out in terms of looking at the actual MVP. And Luka Doncic would be there if Dallas could get their act together and, I don't know, beat the Raptors tonight. That would be a start. And get out of the play-in tournament. But you got to be like a top 3 seed to actually win MVP. You're starting to see that snowball effect for somebody like Jokic and just the uniqueness and the insane dominance that he brings to the floor every single night, where we're going to have what we rarely have, and it's somebody winning 3 MVPs over a 4-year span. We had LeBron win it 4 out of, 5 years with a Derrick Rose in the middle, and we had the 3 out of 4 for Magic Johnson years ago. So it's a situation here where it feels like Jokic is finally just getting the respect, where people are not getting the voter fatigue just with him yet. And on the West side of things, like, dude, you look at the Nuggets. Yeah, I'm with Trista. That is still the best team in the West, and I don't know who beats them even in the Eastern Conference. But, like, what if somebody gets hurt? Like, what if Jamal Murray gets hurt again? What if Michael Porter Jr. isn't out there? Like, there's other factors with all types of different players that could affect that team in the playoffs versus one guy continuing to do what he's done the entire year. Now, the price obviously isn't as good, but I'm going to just look at it from an MVP perspective versus the West champs and what's more likely going to happen. I'll go with Jokic MVP.
He's one of the few players that I do like as well, and I think you're going to see a lot of Eric Cole on your Twitter timeline for the right reasons. His long irons, he's really good with hitting his marks, particularly from the long distance. Now he's 19th in strokes gained on approach, but when you look at those buckets that I was talking about from 200 yards out, he's top 10 in the field. He's not only top 10 in the field, he's top 10 on tour. So he's one of the best long iron players in the world. You mentioned how Cole got second here last year, gaining 9 strokes putting. Typically, I don't want to look at a player who gains that much when it comes to the flat stick. That's typically a worry, except Cole is actually third in the field for putting on Bermuda grass greens, behind Taylor Montgomery and Ben Griffin. So when you tell me that you're already a positive putter, and you excel on this type of surface, and you're one of the best long irons, rightfully so, you should be seeing his name a lot this week.